Are you ready to handle the spinning carnage available to the Goblin, Skaven and Underworld teams? If so, stay tuned, because today we're taking a look at the ball and chain skill. Welcome back, folks, to episode 4 of our Blood Bowl Skills Guide. I'm Rydog, and you can catch me live on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday evenings. We stream Blood Bowl 2 and Fumble, so why not join us and say hi? But let's move on, let's get on to the actual why you're here. Let's move on to the ball and chain skill. You can find it on 4 players in the whole game. Only 4, and they're not all available in every version of the game. So there's 3 star players for the ball and chain skill. Creek Rusgouger is our first, and he plays for Skaven and Underworld teams. Now, depending on who you listen to, it appears that Games Workshop are reshuffling the star players of football. So Creek is a replacement for Fezglitch, who also plays for Skaven and Underworld teams. Now, depending on your version, Creek may or may not be allowed, and Fezglitch may or may not be allowed, but on certain tournaments you will be able to field both, which could lead to an interesting build with 2 ball and chain players. Our 3rd star is Fungus the Loon, he plays for the Goblin team, and the 4th player is a Goblin positional called the Fanatic. It's 0 to 1, and you're likely to see it on most Goblin rosters. Now you might be asking, why bother to cover a skill that only turns up on 4 players in the whole game? And the real reason is, it's one of those skills you really ought to know about before you come up against it, and you will see it on nearly every Goblin team and in a lot of tournaments. A player with the ball and chain skill is only allowed to make one type of action, and that's the move. But unlike every other player in the game, their movement is random. Semi-random. You do get a little bit of control. You can decide if you want to move them forwards, backwards, or left or right on the pitch. But after that, you actually have to roll some dice and use the throw-in template to decide which square they move into. There is quite a big advantage to this random movement, and that is the ability to ignore dodge rolls. So wherever you're moving, whether it's into, through or out of tackle zones, you never have to make the dodge, so you bypass the dive and tackle and tentacle skills. Now if the square you're moving into already has another player in it, then the ball and chain player will throw a block against that player using all of the normal blocking rules. If it results in a knockdown or a pushback, the ball and chain has to follow up. If it doesn't, but the ball and chain player is still standing at the end of their action, then they continue to move. If the player in that square happens to be prone when you move into it, then you don't bother with the block dice and you roll straight on the armor dice. If you break the armor and remove the player as a KO or casualty, then the Fanatic follows up. If you don't, and you don't break the armor, then it results in a push, just like a push on the block dice. And again, you push using all of the normal rules, and the ball and chain player has to follow up. Once a ball and chain player starts to move, they have to use all of their movement. They can't stop partway through. So like our earlier example, where you came up against a player and were both standing after the block action, say both had the block skill, or you pushed against a stand firm player, you would then pick another square, another direction, and then roll for a random square. So this can result in you throwing multiple blocks against the same player in the same turn, until you've used all of your movement allowance. Once you've used all of your movement, it is possible to go for it just like any other player, so twice on a normal or 3 times with a sprint skill to get those extra squares or potentially throw even more blocks. Now, as you can imagine, swinging a ball and chain around is rather dangerous, especially for the person swinging it. So if your ball and chain player is ever knocked down for any reason, either through a block action or a failed GFI or something a little more unusual, say a thrown rock on the kickoff or a wizard's fireball, doesn't really matter. Once the ball and chain player goes down, you skip rolling on the armor and you go straight to rolling for the injury. And the interesting part here is any stun result is going to be a KO. So essentially, the first time that ball and chain player goes down, they go off the pitch. Probably into the KOs, but quite possibly into an injury. The stats and skills for these 4 players vary slightly, given that 3 of them are star players and 1 is a positional, but they do all have 3 things in common. They all have the no hands skill, they all have the secret weapon skill, and they're all strength 7. Now the strength 7 part's interesting because that means against a normal strength 3 player, the ball and chain will roll 3 block dice without any assists. The no hands skill means that they can never ever handle the ball or a thrown bomb, whilst the secret weapons skill means that the referee will send this player off at the end of any drive they're used in. You can get around this with a bribe or a argue the call roll, but we will cover these when we get round to those relevant skills later. It is important to point out that a ball and chain player will block anyone they come into contact with, even players on their own team. If you manage to knock over a player on your own team, that will result in a turnover. If you hit a player that's already down in your own team, even if you remove them, that isn't going to be a turnover. And given the fact you're rolling 3 dice for the block in most situations, it's quite possible to have a clever push play where you use your ball and chain player to push another player on your team into a square they couldn't normally reach. So to sum up, ball and chain players have the potential to cause vast amounts of damage, possibly to both teams, and they are very unpredictable. Their movement is random and you're not quite sure if they're going to go where you want them to. It's also quite common to see them on the field for a short time. Opponents are keen to get rid of them, so they might take uphill blocks against them or attempt to score quickly so that the referee will send them off. When it comes to skill ups on your ball and chain players, we only need to consider the Goblin fanatic, as the others are star players that don't acquire star player points. Now, on a single roll, then the fanatic only has access to strength skills, so you will be looking at mighty blow, guard, and stand firm. But it's interesting when you get to the double rolls, because you can take block and tackle. You could, on the general side, you could take dodge to protect against incoming blocks. It doesn't affect the movement side. Or, and this is quite an interesting choice, sprint and sure feet for extra squares of movement, which probably results in additional blocks. So that covers the ball and chain skill, folks. Drop me a comment below if you've used them in your games, and has anyone actually tried the double fanatic build, and has that resulted in utter carnage? Let us know. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content here, so you don't miss out on our next video. In this skill, it's going to be our first mutation skill. It's going to be Big Hand. So until then, folks, stay safe, and we'll see you on the pitch.